think the general public are very savvy. They can feel when something's for real and they can feel when it's manufactured.
He just obviously likes it for real. He likes it to look as dangerous as possible, but obviously as safe as possible, and that's what we try and achieve.
That's great to see your position now, it's great.
Then everything else matches.
When I shoot my stunts for real, I don't just shoot close-ups and coverage, I shoot wides and I get long lens and shoot tight. So when we're doing those stunts, I'll do a stunt run with the double, then I'll do a run with Chris, and I'll do a run with Denzel.
I think just the two combinations, the way he works and the way I work, we're a good match because I don't like to overdo things.
It's my first time working with Gary. He's English, comes from my home country. He'd done a couple of movies on trains, you know, in terms of rigging and stuff.
I mean, I've been sort of quite lucky because I've worked on trains before, so I come to this with a little bit of train knowledge of what you can and can't do on them, which helped me quite a bit.
Gary's, he's a master in terms of how he choreographs that stuff.
You just want to get in there and do the best job you can, and if he's happy, you know you're doing a good job.
Obvious way to get at a moving object that's doing 70, 80 miles an hour is to come in by helicopter from the air. That idea came from research, and I said this would be a great punctuation in the movie to actually try and load this guy in and see if he can actually climb aboard and shut the train down. And actually the guy that we used, he just came back from Afghanistan after 2 tours. He was a real vet, and he'd only been home a week. He couldn't believe he just got off the plane from Afghanistan and he's in this major movie. We had a 60-foot cable that suspended a double for the lion's share of the sequence, and fortunately he had a helmet on and goggles on, and then we did close-ups and we actually we got Ryan up, the real kid who's got back from Afghanistan. I said, do you just want to do it on the ground? He said, no, I can screw that, I want to get up in the air. So we put him up in the air, the end of the cable.
What you're doing is good because you're looking down, like saying, down, you're looking for, down and look straight back up, then down again, trying to guide him in, looking down, say left of it, right of it.
For me, it was a frightening stunt. A really scary stunt because you've got a helicopter, and it was an old helicopter, a Huey, which is not as nearly as maneuverable as the helicopters that we use today. And the stunt guy was suspended on the end of the 60-foot cable, and they're going down these avenues of trees. We had to cut back some of the trees so it was a little clearer, but still you got all this play on this cable, and then we had to come up and over cables that they wouldn't let us remove it. And I did a limited number of takes because I was so worried about the kid on the end of the cable getting hurt. After the vet lands on top of the train and the trains make contact, he gets flipped backwards, so he bounces over the top of the train and ends up going through the windshield of the second loco. But we did that, we broke that down into 3 separate parts. It was the actual land when he came down, touchdown. So we shot that, with a variety of cameras, close-ups, wides. And then I came in and put a camera on top of the train so the feet land. And then we did the first part of the ratchet. So Gary had to build these rigs, these towers on either end of the train, which is like 120 feet long, I think. So we built these towers and then we ratcheted him back, but we did it in 3 steps. We had the first part of the ratchet, and then the second part when he tumbled, and then the third part when he came off the first locomotive and goes into the windshield of the second.
The Iraqi vet stunt going across the top of the train is quite tricky because you are firing someone across the top of a moving train, and again we have our towers up, you take all the, precautions you can to make it safe, but at the end of the day you still got to ping someone 20 or 30 foot across the top of a train, so you have to sort of do it carefully and plan it all out and break it down so it's, it's as safe as possible.
All needed for somebody who's not to be concentrating at any one moment, so I was relieved when I finished that sequence. Coming into the back of the train, I wondered, how can I make this more exciting? And when we were scouting, I saw these grain cars sitting there on the siding, and I said, got it. So the idea was it comes in too hot, and when it hits, it fractures the seals, which is possible, and that's where you had this grain storm.
Fire! Yes, that's the deal. Joe, that's the deal for the wide shots, brilliant.
But it made it that much more exciting, and I nearly panicked and nearly didn't do it because it was such a major headache because the the actual grain car itself, we had to put big fans inside them. We had to put explosive devices. So when it first hit, there's this huge explosion of grain. And I want to say it was grain, it was actually sugar puffs and potato flakes.
So right now we're getting ready to dump all this cereal, blast it from our air movers. We have our air compressor back there, 2 air movers up here. We got a guy on each air mover, and we're going to be blasting Chris Pines with cereal.
I think I got 10,000 tons of sugar puffs and potato flakes. And everybody kept saying, well, how are you going to clear all this stuff up? I said, well, you watch. And sure enough, all the deer in northern Pennsylvania loved us, because every morning we come to track and it was all gone. All the deer and the possums, they were fat cats. They loved sugar puffs and potato flakes.
Just grain, no potato, yeah? Just grain, no potato.
But it was major, because every time he did that hit, he had maybe 30 seconds of maximum burst in terms of the impact of the grain, supposedly, and coming out. So I think we did it 3 different times. The first time was terrible, and then the second and third time were humongous. So we learned from each time how much more explosives we needed, and what the mixture should be. Should be more sugar puffs, or should be more potato flakes, and they ended up 50-50.
We're actually having Chris hanging upside down in between 2 moving trains, which I'm sure he's not enthusiastic about, but he's going to do it.
Tony wanted me to do the fall, which would mean being harnessed in, obviously, but fall into the gap, and then, you know, the selling point of it is that my head almost hits the ground. The only thing that's keeping me up is my leg, which I promptly said no to. But I talked to Gary about it, and there's no way for me to do it without it being, I would have done it.
He has to hang across the knuckles, which are in the middle of the train. And that's technically the most dangerous part, because that constantly sort of breathes in and out. And like, as the story is, his foot gets trapped in there, and you could actually do that. So we've had to build a little plate that goes over that, so he can actually put his feet on there and be totally safe if the train moves in and out.
Gary Powell is a tremendous stunt technician, so I trust that they prepped it for a while, they know exactly what they're doing, but there is that moment when you look over and the world's speeding by, and you know that the difference between you and being a vegetable is about 5 inches is a little scary.
And that intercuts with what we've done with the stunt guy, where he's pretty much in the same thing, but the stunt guy didn't have the stuff on the knuckles because we were filming that. And he does the whole fall, and he snaps down, and he sort of lands like 6 inches above the track, hands flying around and all that.
So you'll see in the film is leg gets caught, scream, and then he falls, and that's Daniel, and then you'll see my head pop into frame. But that alone, you know, it's like you're strapped in between 2 million-pound train cars going 40 some odd miles an hour, and your head's over all this rocky ballast.
No matter who you are, it's not something you'd want to wake up and do first thing in the morning, sort of thing. So I'm sure he'll have fun though. What we're doing now is we're doing inserts to Denzel Washington's character Frank running across the top of the hopper cars. So we've got a little set piece over there that you can see, so we can film through it, and we can see Denzel climb down the ladders, start turning the brakes to apply the brakes, and then climb out of shot. Then later on today we actually go with Denzel running along the top of the real train.
"50 miles an hour. I'm running across the top of a train, hanging off the side of it. I want you to know it was really me up there, hanging off the side of a train. I was standing up there, we're picking up speed, and I have to run across the top of it. And I'm going, what am I doing? With a helicopter flying about 10 feet over my head behind me.
Sometimes those blades are a foot above Denzel's head. And, you know, that's what happens when you shoot a movie in that way, and for real, you get real performances. You know, you get those guys, you have to say, watch this tennis ball on the end of this arm and try and motivate.
They had a low platform train first. They put me on that to warm me up.
Instead of putting him on the real one where we can't get good camera access and all that, Chris Seeger's built a set piece which is slightly lower, where we can get easier access for everyone, and also a little bit more comfortable for Denzel to be on top of it.
And then I ended up on top of it. You know, trains are taller than you imagine.
That was scary. Scary for Dee. Scary because he's 25 feet up in the air, and we're doing 50 miles an hour, and those trains at 50 miles an hour, the consist had to be empty. You know, the heavier it was, the slower I went. I wanted to go faster, obviously. You know, but this thing's flapping around like this. So, but we had Denzel on leashes. We ran a leash either side of him, so he could actually run on top of the train. You know, but if you slip, he wouldn't slip and fall and hit the deck. And the same with the stunt guy. But it's hairy when you're standing up there and you're doing 40, 50 miles an hour. For big wide shots, where I actually got D to do a run, because even on the wide shots I'd get my long lens that I could get in this close on Denzel running, and then get Denzel out and get the double to run that same section of track.
I did it though, didn't I? Did I do it? I did it. I hope you got it on film. All right.
This is the track we're using for the very end scene where the train gets stopped. So over the last few days we've had Denzel on top of the train and Chris jumping off the train, driving alongside the train and jumping back on the train. When he jumps back onto the train, we had his stunt double again, Daniel, doing that. We sort of had different scenarios for the way we was going to do it. You know, you could have a cable onto the train. Because of the way the road is, it's a little bit tricky because we can put a cable from the train to the guy on the truck, but at some point he has to jump because obviously the road and the train track separate, and also being it as a train and the road sort of widens and narrows where you can actually track alongside it. If for any reason something went wrong with the truck and he was attached to the train, it would physically drag him off the track and then alongside the train, which would be really bad. So, you know, with the rehearsals and that we've done, we actually found it was actually more safer for us not to have anything at all and physically do the jump, which is, you know, it is a dangerous thing, but you rehearse it and it's fine. It looked freaking great.
The guy that was my stunt double was incredible. He did it like 5 times, slipped off the first time, was being dragged by the ballast on the ground and had to, you know, just use his upper body strength to get him. I mean, I'm no hero, I'm no stunt guy, so I was, he did a tremendous, tremendous job.
It's about a 6-foot jump, and it's nice because like as he lands, we have him sort of grabbing the railings and slipping down, his sort of foot dragging, which is like enhancing the pain that he's sort of got from it being crushed earlier on the train when he gets his foot caught. So, you know, shot it a few times from all the different angles that we had and it looked great. And then we have Chris sort of overlapping that, then he's on the truck, but he's like, you know, he's physically on the truck, flying alongside it like 60 odd mile an hour, coming up to the front of it.
I had a full harness on, they strapped me in, and I just hung on for dear life as the stunt driver drove down this wet road and was making curves to make it look like it was more dangerous than it actually was. None of it was scary up until the point where I get up onto the toolbox. I'm about to fake jump, and I'm attached, but I'm leaning off the thing to kind of mime jumping off. So as I'm going to pull off, fake jump, the car guy swerves. So there was a second where as I'm jumping, I basically catapulted off, and the only thing that caught me, thank God, was this harness. That's when just the little teeny weeniest bit of urine ran down my leg. But it was, besides that, it was, you know, it was a lot of fun.
It's actually one of the rare things nowadays in filming where a real stuntman does a real stunt and there's no CGI involved at all, sort of thing. You know, it's like that's the proper stuff. Real stunts, real stunt people doing real stunts. It's great. Old school, definitely.